So your house did not sell on offer date last night as expected, but guess what? It can sell tomorrow, or the next day, or the day after. Hello folks, and welcome back to the Last Honest Realtor podcast. I'm your host, David Fleming. Thank you for joining me today as we examine why selling your home in 2025 feels so different and so much harder. Now, the example I gave in the opening there is a common one. A lot of houses are not selling on the offer dates, and it's catching a lot of sellers by surprise. Now, when I say house, of course, I mean freehold. We can talk about the condo market, which we will, but specifically in that holy grail of housing, the freehold, and especially in that what I would call central Toronto entry-level starter home price between 900 and 1.3 roughly, there are a lot of houses not hitting their offer dates. Now, I want to go right into an example. One of my listings that I recently had to speak from experience and underscore the preparation that's involved, which unfortunately a lot of listing agents are not doing with their clients, but also the thought process and the psychology, what it's like to be a seller as you go through this process. So I have a listing. Let's say it's in the West End. Let's say it's worth about $1.3 million. We do what we always do. We spend time getting it ready for sale. There are some old carpets we'll rip up. We'll put in some new flooring. Easy peasy. Kitchen counter, absolutely no problem. We take everything out of the house. We put it all in storage. We stage it. We paint it. We clean it. We market it. We do all the wonderful things that we typically do. And suffice it to say, the home is ready to be sold. Now we put it on the market. And of course, guess what? There's fewer showings than we expected. Now, again, I talk about preparation. Very, very important for you as a real estate agent to sit down with your clients, proverbially, of course. I always list on a Monday or Tuesday, and I always have a conversation the night before, and I lay out the expectations. Guys, the first day of the listing, I'd like to have 4 to 5 showings booked. Now, not through the house, but booked. We just looked at booked semantics, but more importantly, the second day of the listing. That's when I would like to see 6 to 8 booked. Because the second day of the listing, well, that's when most people have looked at it online, the agents have emailed it, and they're getting ready to go. Now, they might book for the weekend, that's fine. But by the end of those first 2 days, I'd like to see roughly between 8 and 15 showings. Now, the conversation goes on, and I say, at the end for this house that's listed at $1,089,000, where we're looking for 1.3 with an offer date, I would like to see about 30 showings when all is said and done. Now, let's say that this starts a little slowly. We have 2 showings booked on the first day. And let's say that the second day, which we expect to be our big showing day, we have 3 showings booked. Now, this is very typical in this market. Showings are down. I've discussed this a lot through the podcast and through Toronto Realty blog over the last couple of weeks, but all is not lost. As I am going through this process with my sellers and educating them on the fly, because it doesn't necessarily meet with our expectation, hey guys, we're gonna have 30 showings in total, we're gonna have 6 to 8 the second day, I'm talking to colleagues, which again is paramount for any agent in this industry, and an agent in my office who shall remain nameless tells me she had 18 showings and 3 offers. Hey, 3 offers on 18, that's pretty good. Then I talk to an agent very well known on the east side who says that for her 8 offer melee, 8 offers she had on a listing, she only had 24 showings. Okay, so off to the races we are. Now, the rest of this process, it does not play out as expected. Sellers are super nervous. We've only had 2 people ask for a copy of the home inspection so far. And by the time we get to the weekend, they're on edge. Now, the weekend's great. We have a ton of people through the open house. And here's another thing you have to remember. There are a lot of buyers that will go through on the open house without their agents. I actually got a call from an agent who said that he was in Europe and his clients came through the open house both Saturday and Sunday. He's on a flight coming home and we have offers on a Monday. This guy lands, I don't know how the math works here, but lands at like 9 in the morning on Monday and then goes and books a preview on the property for noon. We've got offers at 6 o'clock. He didn't end up offering, but more on that in a moment. Now, the people are coming through the open house. We have 15 groups on the Saturday. We have 10 groups on the Sunday. Everything's looking great. Then we get to the offer date. 6 o'clock. Now, what used to happen? Here's the disconnect. And here's where agents, whether it's myself or anybody else, has to talk to their sellers in advance. We're not getting 10 offers. Once upon a time, this house, and like honestly, guys, even February of 2024, I had a listing on Westwood. We were $999. We sold it for $1.4 million. I think I had 8 offers. That was a year and 3 months ago. This is this year. What it's not is 2022 or 2021. We're not getting 15 offers in this house. We're not getting 10, we're not getting 8, we're not getting 6. Every agent that called me about this property and they said, what are you expecting for tonight? And that's a very buyer agent thing to do. I said 0 to 3 offers. That's about as honest as I can be. So if I say, oh, I'm expecting 10 offers, because some of you are like, David, why would you be so honest? If I say I'm expecting 10 offers, what am I really flexing with? I'm going to drive them away. And if I don't drive them away, then they're going to think I have no idea what I'm talking about. Honesty is important in this market, honest to a point. But if I say 0 to 3, I'm being accurate because I might have 0. And I don't know that I'm going to get 3. I'd love it, but that agent is prepared. So 4 or 5 agents call me. I say 0 to 3 offers. In the end, we get 1. We get 1 offer. Now, the house is worth 1.3, or I think it is. Maybe it's not. You tell me differently. We're listed at $1 million. What did I say? $1,089,000. We get an offer for $1,180,000. So it's $100,000 over list, but it's $120,000 below, for all intents and purposes, what this house is worth, or what the agent should believe it's worth. But as that buyer agent, some of you are thinking, why would he offer over list? You're not getting it for $1,089,000. You know you're not. It's listed low with an offer date. No seller has to accept that bid. I know there's some people out there that are saying every seller should have to take every offer that comes in. I don't believe in offer nights and underlisting. Okay, cool. Conversation for another day. But the point is, he did his job. He came in over list, nowhere near what we wanted. And he said to me, David, everything's negotiable. So I call the clients. They're in an absolute panic. And I'm reminding them what we talked about beforehand. The one thing I did not tell you, because I wanted to save it for this moment, was that in the conversation about the number of showings we expect, looking at things like requests for the home inspection as an indication of interest, I tell my clients the brutal, honest truth. We have a 50-50 shot of selling this on the offer night. I don't think people are telling their clients that. I think the major disconnect in this market, and again, I'm talking entry-level semis, right? Or if you want the 1.6 semi and lease side, whatever it is, in an area where you could have a $2.5 million detached, but it happens to be so incredibly sought after. Point is, the list low offer date strategy, 50-50. Agents aren't telling their clients that, and it's setting them up for disappointment. It's setting the entire process up for failure. So we get the 1 offer for $1,180,000, and I say to my clients, guys, remember, we said there's a 50-50 shot. And of course they're freaking out, right? It's like poof, amnesia. Yes, we had this discussion, David, but here we are. I cannot believe this. The agent says to me, everything's negotiable. So I start to talk to the clients about what to do. They say, well, let's get them up in price. Here's the thing. You catch more flies with honey, and you've got to work in the market that you're in. And in this case, it's not 2022 where you call 32 people or blast out a mass email and say, we're sending you all back. Here's where if you say to that agent, can you come up in price? He's going to say, yeah, but why would we? You give us a sign back. Now, my clients said, why would we sign it back? It's an offer night. Very true. Very good point. Very fair. And this is where a lot of listing agents are going wrong because they're saying, yeah, totally. Absolutely. Let's tell them they have to come up. The buyers aren't going to do it. They're not going to bid against themselves, nor should they. Now, this agent said to me, listen, we've made you an offer. The ball's in your court. You can respond to us. Exactly what he should have done. So we signed it back at 1.3, and they came up to 1,210, and that was it. Now, the sellers were not happy. I think that goes without saying, and no matter how much I prepared them for the fact that their house might not sell on offer date, all of a sudden now it's here and it's real. So as a seller, you say things like, no one loves our house, our showings were down, what did we do wrong? I can't believe we only got this much. Are we headed for financial ruin? No, you're not. You've got a July closing date. You're fine. You could sell your house in 3 or 4 weeks. Now, the sellers, of course, are going to go crazy, and they're going to say, we can't do that. Nor should they have to. But the point is, the next day, the world continues to spin. And this is a saying I've always had. I say to people, guys, if your house doesn't sell on offer date, tomorrow you wake up, the world is still turning. And yes, it is. So I wrote a blog, I think it was last year, I think it was earlier this year, about selling on offer date, strategy A, selling in between offer date and relist, the limbo period as I call it, strategy B, and then selling after the relist, strategy C. You have to have all those 3 strategies in advance. And damn if I don't keep hammering on this point. But listing agents, You have to have this conversation with your sellers. So the next day, the phone rings. As expected, it always does. 5 people call and ask, hey, did you sell last night? Those are interested agents with interested buyers. Now, if you immediately relist, you don't get those phone calls because they know that. Now, I know there are a bunch of agents that listen to the podcast, so they will understand exactly where I'm coming from here when I say the toughest thing for a listing agent after failed offer date is the next day when agents call to inquire because they have a competing listing coming out. That is so hard. That is one of the hardest things. Imagine this, the phone rings. Hey, David, I'm calling about your listing at 123 Fake Street. And you're like, yeah. They're like, did you guys sell last night? You're like, no, we didn't. They're like, oh, really? And you think, oh my God, they've got a buyer. And then they're like, because I'm actually prepping a listing up the street from yours. And you're like, oh, that's a tough one. I had about 5 of those calls. So I have 5 agents that call me and ask if we sold. I have 5 agents that call and ask if we sold because they've got a listing coming out. And all the while, my clients, of course, are freaking out. What are we going to do? And I'm saying, guys, listen, we're in that in-between period. We're in the limbo. People are going to call, and they do. Now, I end up with 2 or 3 pretty interested parties, but one in particular, the one I mentioned where the agent was in Europe and flew back and saw it, this is the one that I'm banking on. Now, I keep in touch with them because they go and make an offer on another property, get absolutely blown out. There are properties that are getting 16 offers, and this one happened to. And by the time we get towards the end of the week, we need to relist. You can only stay at your $1,089,000 underlist so long, so we come back out at $1,299,000. I'm going to give you the ending of the story pretty quickly without much drama. We sold it to those people for $1,290,000. So all's well that ends well. Now, you could say, well, hang on, you said 1.3, it was $1,290,000. Listen, 1.3 is $1,320,000 is $1,280,000. The point is, guys, we got it sold for what it was worth, but it wasn't easy. And this is what I wrote. Why selling your home in 2025 feels so different and so much harder. If you were in a different jurisdiction somewhere else on planet Earth and you complained that it took you 11 days to sell your home, they would think that you're crazy. But this is the point I'm making today. It feels so much harder. Is it harder? It's a different strategy. We did what we always do. We got the property ready. We put it up. We underlisted it. We held an offer date. We didn't sell an offer date. That was Monday. We sold it on Thursday. We sold it 3 days after our offer date for what it was worth. But man, it was not easy to get there. So guys, that was a little longer lead-in than perhaps any of us expected. Here's where we're at in this market. Sellers are running on old assumptions. The gap between seller expectation and buyer behavior is widening by the week. And this point cannot be understated. Sellers' expectations, which are based on agents leading them astray or agents not reining them back in, and the unrealistic desire for a price from 2 years ago, that is ever present in our market. And the buyers are looking at what's happening and they're kind of veering off in the other direction. Now, homes are sitting longer, and it's not because they're flawed. It's because the buyers aren't moving quickly. So in the case that I mentioned with the exceptionally long lead-in story, I did talk to a few agents that when I said, hey, are you coming in on offer night? They said, I think my buyers are going to take a wait and see. I talked to a bunch of agents that said my buyers don't do offer nights. So call me a salesperson, but I've always said it's better to overpay for a house you love than to underpay for a house you like. Now, if the strategy for a buyer is, I want to look at every house and the ones that don't hit on their offer dates and are relisted and sit on the market, I want to go for one of those. Listen, you might get yourself a good deal, but is that the house that you absolutely love? Remember, yes, it's an investment, but you're also living in there. Now, relisting is back in fashion, and savvy buyers are watching days on market like hawks. Days on market add up. Buyers have access, whether it's to House Sigma or any of the other apps or the savvy agents that are educating them on it. You can take a listing, a relisting that's been on the market for 5 days, and look back and see it was in the market for 55 days before that. They get it. And Matthew, who's on my team, was telling me he's working with a buyer where their strategy is that there are 2 houses listed on the same block. Now, one of them has an offer date and it doesn't hit. And Matthew calls him and says, what kind of price are you looking for? This agent's absolutely out to lunch, starts going like this. For those of you listening, I'm doing a yeah with my fingers. And Matthew says, listen, there's literally a house 10 houses up. And that agent has said his client's a bought firm, they need to sell. That guy's rolling out the red carpet. What are you going to do for me? The end of this story is that the agent did more yeah, blah, blah. Matthew literally moved on to the other house. That listing agent, who thinks it's 2022, cost his seller a sale. But the point is, this is a real live story with young Matthew on the team, who has clients that are watching on Days on Market, who has clients that are looking at the opportunity for competition in the same block, and they're running with it. Now, many sellers are still thinking in $2021 or 2022 or even 2023, while buyers are negotiating like it's 2018. Okay, I might have fudged the years there just to kind of demonstrate, okay, buyers aren't thinking it's 2018. But what a lot of buyers are doing, and I don't really want to get into the condo market because that's like a whole other podcast, but there are buyers in the condo market that, for example, I've got a listing at $639.9. We got an offer last night for $590. I talked to the agent on the weekend. He said, my client has a pre-approval of $600. I said, we're not interested. Now, I've done podcasts before about how you always invite the offer. That was me already negotiating. But the guy came in at $590. Okay, off to the races, I guess. Now, when he said my client has a pre-approval for $600, his offer was conditional on financing, status certificate, home inspection for a condo. I know we'll get him up. My goal there is to get $620 for this place. But point is, they had no problem coming $50,000 below list on this place when it's only been on the market for 14 days. Now, the frustration is real, but the market has moved on, and the sellers that don't recognize that shift are already falling behind. So this market is not declining. Don't think that when I'm saying they're falling behind, and I had one seller who said, I don't want to chase the market down. The market's not going down. The market's completely flat. I might argue that month over month, 2 months in a row, the market's up. Okay, but it's also prime spring. So we're not chasing the market down, but what we are doing as sellers is we're getting further behind. So once upon a time, if you had a stale listing 30 days in the market, people assume there's something wrong with it. Yes, there are buyers that can be targeting that, but as a seller, your listing just falls further and further out of favor. Now, what is driving this shift? This isn't about one big variable. It's a combination of subtle pressure points that are finally adding up. So the first thing I want to look at is interest rates. Interest rates haven't dropped enough to matter. The minor cuts are more symbolic than practical. And if I go back to last fall, and I can admit when I'm wrong, last fall, specifically last summer, when we first started to see the cuts, I said, okay, people are going to get ahead of this because when super cuts are enacted, prices will shoot up. The savvy buyer goes out and they buy in June, July, August of 2024 in advance of all the cuts. Well, the fall market didn't take off like I expected it to because what I realized is that not everybody thinks like me. Go figure. People want to wait until the cuts are there. They don't want to buy ahead of the cuts, right? Wayne Gretzky, what does he say? Go to where the puck is going, right? A quarterback will not throw to the player. He'll throw to where they're running to. That's a pretty good analogy, don't you think? So that is what I thought would happen. And then, of course, we got into the spring of this year and I was all geared up, and then came Trump and tariffs and election and all this stuff, not making excuses. But I think the point is a lot of folks are waiting to see the Bank of Canada hit 2%. Down from 5%, some quick math. Yes, you've reduced the interest rate by 60%. I think that is what we're waiting for. Now, buyers are selective and cautious. Everyone has seen the headlines and they're hedging. And I think that it's very hard to buy into a market where the media attention is constantly negative. I mean, I get the Toronto Star email that has kind of like a summary of all the real estate articles in the week, and their headline, among a bunch of different headlines, was about the condo market collapse. How do you go and buy a condo when you're seeing the word collapse? Now, the pre-construction market has collapsed, which of course I called for the last 15 years. But point being, how do you go and buy into a market when you're seeing headlines like that? Now, the holding costs are climbing. For sellers carrying vacant or staged homes, time is expensive. And another point that I want to make here is that because holding costs are climbing and it's taking longer to sell, here's where some selling agents are saying, I don't want to spend any money. Now, I have 13 listings right now. Every one of my listings is staged, okay? I spend money to make money. In a down market, in an up market, in a balanced market, I do not change what I do because I believe in the model. But that's me. There are a lot of agents out there right now that are saying, we used to list a property, hold offer date, and sell it, I don't want to be on the hook for absurd staging costs. I understand that, but that's not what we do, or at least that's not what I do. So yes, my expenses are way up because properties are taking longer to sell, but agents in the industry aren't following along. So now you've got a tough market, you've got a tough sell, and then your offering looks like crap. It's vacant. It's dirty. It's tenanted. Well, the tenant thing you can't do anything about, but it's lived in. And it's on the market against 9 other listings, 5 of which are beautiful and staged. Now is not the time for agents to get cheap. And what I'm seeing over and over again is that the sellers that are carrying these, or, the sellers are obviously incurring costs, but the listing agents just don't want to spend the money. Now, digital exposure isn't working like it used to. A great listing today isn't just in the mix. I think that people have to get a little bit more creative. I was just talking to Lindsay off camera, and she said, we've got one listing that's not doing well. She said, you've got to know Lindsay, we're getting an effing ice cream truck. That was her idea. And I said, you know what? Yeah, we should. Let's do that. Now, we had one where we got out the Bosley bike. The Bosley bike is one of those like ice cream, how would I describe it? It holds ice cream. Sorry, I'm not feeling very creative today. It's not a truck, but we had one of those at an open house. A lot of people showed up. Now, I don't know that any of them were going to buy the house, but for that particular listing, guess what? Someone that lived across the street, whose door we knocked on, told their friend, and the friend came and saw it and bought it. You got to think outside the box. When the market's absolutely ripping, sure, you can put your thing on MLS and just wait. Just sit back, get a lawn chair. But in a market like this, you have to do things. And Lindsay with the ice cream truck, I'm literally going to go back there in about 10 minutes and she will have an entire price list and she'll have 4 different vendors. And I just absolutely know how she does things. So the result of all this, guys, is that homes that should sell are being ignored, not because of what they are, but because of what the market isn't anymore. And I've always said that you have to work in the market that you're in. Don't think it's something else. Don't work in a past market. Don't try to work in a future market. You're trying to forecast where it's going. You have absolutely no idea. And even if you knew with certainty, you're still not in that market. So the sellers are acting like it's years ago. The buyers, they're certainly trying to take advantage. And I always do look inward first. I blame the action or inaction of a lot of the listing agents. Now, the new seller's playbook. There is still a market, but it rewards precision, not momentum. Price needs to be accurate on day one. Testing the ceiling just means burning your best week. Burning your best week. Your best week is the first week. So let's say, let's say Tara and I go in and we meet a builder. And the builder says, well, I think my house is worth X. Now, builders always price 20% above market. And we, of course, say, if you want to price at $4.5 million, reduce to 4.3, reduce to 4.1, reduce to 3.9, and sell for 3.7 9 months from now, we're not the agents for you. Now, it's going to be tough for that builder to hire us because that's what builders do. But what I'm seeing is that builder mentality is playing out in the resale market where people are saying, I want to test the ceiling. Now, once upon a time, you don't know if your house that you think is worth $1 million, could you get $1.020 million, $1.050 million? What could you get? You price it at $749.9 with an offer date. Oh my God, you got $1.1 million. Thank God you didn't list at $1 million with offers anytime. We're not in that market. But sellers still just aren't willing to let go of the ceiling that just doesn't exist. So now you've got that house that's worth $1 million. And you're not going to list it low with an offer date. I mean, in this case, you probably would, but let's say that it's, in Durham region or something. And so you price it $1,079,000, but it's not worth it. It's not worth it. The comp just sold for $950. And that's this ceiling that sellers are trying to strive for that is so incredibly far out of reach. And in turn, they are burning their best week. They're not just burning their best week, guys. They're burning their best month because it takes a while to reduce. Now, presentation matters more than ever. If it isn't aspirational, it's forgettable. And I go back to the point about the holding costs and how these costs are climbing. I don't want to cry poor, but my costs are through the roof this year. My job is to sell real estate. There will be good years and bad years. There will be different years. But at the end of the day, My costs are up because it is necessitated. That is what we have to do to sell. We have to make this thing look as good as it did in 2023 or 2021 or 2016. My model's always been the same. But a lot of these listings are completely forgettable, and a lot of them aren't even getting looked at. Now, strategy needs to be local, not generic. Timing, staging, even photography should speak to the micro market. And I mentioned that we're doing different things to try to think outside of the box. Tara and I, for a listing, did this awesome drone video property walkthrough situation. I have absolutely no idea if that was a waste of money or not, but damn if we weren't going to try it. You need to elevate your game. And it's not just the listing agents, it's the sellers too. So some sellers are saying, yeah, I don't know if I want to move out. You want to do this week of showings and you want to have this offer date, but I mean, is it really going to work? Do we really need to do that? Now is not the time to get out of that mentality. Do whatever it takes. Now, seller psychology is part of the pitch. Buyers want confidence, not desperation. And I go back to the mindset of a seller that decides how this is going to go in advance. And when it doesn't go their way, they start to panic. Sellers can make bad decisions if their listing agent isn't holding their hand through the entire process. You try to prep them in advance, and trust me when I say throughout the process, no matter how much preparation there is, there are going to be bumps along that road, and there are going to be moments where they might doubt you, the agent, or your ability, or your plan, or your process. But you have to continue to lead them down the path. And I used this example earlier of the strategy A, listing with an offer date, doesn't work. Strategy B, the limbo period in between after the failed offer date, drumming up interest, doesn't work. Strategy C, relisting, and you'll get it sold. That is the new normal in our market. Agents who succeed this spring will be the ones who stop trying to win the listing and start helping clients get through the noise. And I can't tell you guys, honestly, I don't know how this is going to sound. I've had a lot of, I don't want to say I've turned down a lot of business. I've had a lot of sellers that I have not connected with because we just weren't on the same page. It's not to say I'm not going to fight and scrape and claw for that seller, but when we're so far off base, when sellers say, I need to get this, and I say, I understand, but that's 20% above fair market value. I need this. Need doesn't play in this market. Now, what smart sellers are doing right now. Okay, we're going to look at this from the viewpoint of sellers, buyers, and agents. Sellers, look past last year's sales and focus on today's traction. Price sharp, launch clean, and move decisively. Hesitation has a cost. If you're a seller and you're listing on June 1st, you had better be paying attention to all of the listings that come out mid-May onward and what's happening on their offer nights. Buyers, you're in a better spot than you realize. If something feels right, make your move, but make it wisely. And I would continue to offer, you heard this from me before, it's better to overpay for a house you love than underpay for a house you like. I understand the investment portion of it. I understand that you could get a great deal. But at the end of the day, personally, every property I've ever bought, I've looked back and said, man, if I had to do it over, I would pay more just to guarantee it. Because of course I live there and I love there. It's your home. It's not just an asset. Now, agents. Oh, agents. Lead with clarity. Be blunt about what's changed. Clients don't need optimism. They need options. Now, sure, they need optimism, but they need realism. And I have lost listings over price. I had one seller, I did a full presentation. I love stats. I can't tell you how much that is a part of what I do. And I said, this is a 13135 house. Seller folded her arms across her chest and said, if I'm going to buy the condo I want to downsize in, I need 1.6. That's a lot. I didn't get that listing. And it came out on the market. It was priced too high. It got 0 offers on offer night. It's been sitting there showing offers reviewed on April 28th. It still says that. And we're in late May. I don't know if that's panic. I don't know if that's desperation. I don't know if that's paralysis, but they haven't changed the price. They haven't increased it yet. I feel for that seller. I told her, I understand what you want to do, but it might not be possible. And I said, if you want to wait 2 or 3 years, I am your guy. I will work with you. Oh, there was so much work that needed to be done in the house, none of which they did, of course. But I was like, I will bring contractors in. We will do this together. I'm your guy, whether it's today at market value or 2 to 3 years from now at the price you want. And she said, yeah, but then the condo I want to buy is going to go up in value. So I just need to get what I need to get. It's not the market that we're in. I wish it was. So folks, I'm going to end it there, short and sweet. I hope you learned a little. I think I did as I was going through this. And, I can be verbose and tell a lot of stories, but it is the stories in this market that are driving home the point. And one more point to agents, because I know agents listen to this. Agents need to talk to agents. You learn by interacting, and all of the stories out there. I have learned so much about the market, not just through my own experiences, but by networking and talking to the other experienced agents that are out there. What happened on your offer night? What was it like? Now, again, a lot of the agents, they're paralyzed. They don't know how to talk on the phone, but the experienced ones, it's a community. They're your competitors, but they're your colleagues, and they are the best source of information about what's going on in the market. The headlines, the stats, none of that means anything. What is happening in the real estate trenches? So whether you're an agent, whether you're a buyer, you're a seller, I leave you with that. Understand what's happening by talking to people that are in it. Folks, thank you so much for watching. As always, feel free to leave me a comment if you're watching on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast, please remember to like, comment, or subscribe. And we'll see you here next time on The Last Honest Realtor.